So good morning, my dear students and friends. Welcome back. Welcome back in my next class, that is the Access to Genetic Resources Impact Assessment and Mitigation under Article 14 and 15 of the CBT. CBT is the Convention of Biological Diversity. So I am Professor Urusilias, working in Department of Wildlife Sciences as a professor since 1.5 decades. So, we will be discussing about the access to genetic resources, impact assessment and mitigation. So, what is the, let's discuss about the, let's have an overview of the article 14 and 15 of the CBD. We know there are 40 articles in Convention on the Biological Diversity. So, what is the article 14 is about? So, article 14 is about impact assessment and mitigation, impact assessment and minimizing adverse impact, requires environmental impact assessment EIA for project likely to affect biodiversity. Focus on both direct and indirect effects on ecosystem and species, including public participation in decision making, and mandates the adoption of mitigation measures to avoid or reduce biodiversity harm and restore impacted ecosystem. So any company or any factories which is going to be established, or any development work is going to be established in any given area, environmental impact assessment is must, so that we can assess what would be the impact on the environment if we are doing this work. So environmental impact assessment is important so that we can minimize the impact by some mitigation measure. So, this is about the article 14, impact assessment and minimizing adverse impact. The article 15 is about access to genetic resources. Genetic resources are the key component of the biological diversity. So, every nation has got the sovereign right over their genetic material, and that is what we are going to discuss in access to genetic resources under article 15. So, recognizing the sovereign right of nation over their genetic resources is basmati is growing at the Dehradun belt. So, the India has got the sovereign right. If turmeric we are growing, so India has the sovereign right for that species. If you are growing the neem, the Azadirachta indica, so India has got the sovereign right over that. So, recognizing the sovereign right of nation over their genetic resources, access is granted based on prior informed consent and mutually agreed term between providers and user. If somebody is asking some genetic material from one country, the other country is asking genetic material from one country, that country will be having the sovereign right over the product. If we are providing something, we are providing neem to USA, we have the sovereign right over the neem. If you are providing the basmati to other country, to any foreign country, we will be having the sovereign right over the rice. Whichever country uses, they have to share the benefits. So access is granted based on prior informed consent and mutually agreed terms between providers and user. Ensure fair and equitable sharing of benefits derived from genetic resources, fostering innovation and conservation. So, genetic material will be ours. If we have one product, we have sovereign right, and whatever the world does with the product, whatever innovation, experiment, so whatever benefit they will be arising, that will be shared with the country from where the genetic material had been obtained. So this is the beauty of the convention. So key principle of the article 14, access to genetic resources. So impact assessment are a critical tool for identifying potential environment damage from development projects. Mitigation strategy involves preventing damage to biodiversity, promoting restoration of affected area, implementing contingency plan to reduce unforeseen damage. The case studies are major infrastructure projects have integrated EIAs resulting of rerouting of development to protect critical habitat or species. So, key principle of Article 14, impact assessment and minimizing adverse impact. Impact assessment EIA are critical tool for identifying potential environment damage from development projects. Mitigation strategies involve promoting restoration of affected area, implementing contingencies plan to reduce unforeseen damages. Case studies, major infrastructure projects have integrated EIA. EIA is environmental impact assessment, resulting in the rerouting of the development to protect critical habitat or species. And the key principle of Article 15, that is access to genetic resources, access mechanism. Genetic resources can be accessed only with prior informed consent from the provider country. So, if the foreign country has to obtain, so any country wants to obtain the genetic material from India, they have to inform us, they have to take the prior informed consent, that is the PIC, because we are the provider. Or if we have to obtain something from different country, we have to do the PIC, that is the prior informed consent from the provider countries. The second and most important thing is the benefit sharing. So, genetic material is from our country and somebody else, some other country is using that genetic material and making some medicine or any product. So, whatever benefits will be arising from that material will be shared by the provider country. So, fair distribution of the benefits, for example, technology transfer, monetary compensation derived from the use of genetic resources, that should be fair distribution of the benefits. For example, Hoodia plant in South Africa used in traditional medicine led to a commercial drug. The local communities benefited from shared profit, supporting their conservation efforts and economic development. So, the Hoodia plant in South Africa used in the traditional medicine, and now that plant has been used in the commercial medicine, and the benefits arising from the product is being shared by the community and for their conservation efforts and economic development. Access to genetic resources overview. What are genetic resources? For example, plant, animal, microorganism and traditional knowledge. Traditional knowledge is also the resource. Importance, genetic resources as a foundation for agriculture, pharmaceutical and biotechnology. Sovereign right, nations' right over their genetic resources. So, genetic resources are the plant, animal, microorganism and the traditional knowledge. If we know, if you are growing the haldi is from India and we are using the haldi since generation to generation, we know adding with milk can really can give you relief from the pain. Putting the haldi paste will help your wound healing fast. So, putting the haldi on skin will give you a better skin. So, these are the uses we already knows, but there is no documentation of all the uses, that is called traditional knowledge. So, that is also part of the resources, and the important genetic resources are the foundation for agriculture, pharmaceutical, biotechnology. And every country, every nation with the genetic resources has their sovereign right over the product. So, nations' right over their genetic resource is the sovereign right. International legal framework for access of genetic resources, the Nagoya Protocol. The Nagoya Protocol was the COP of the CBD, Convention on Biological Diversity, and it supplemented agreement to the CBD in 2010. Nagoya is in Japan. So, the COP took place, CBD COP took place in Nagoya, and that is why this is called Nagoya Protocol, and this is for the supplement agreement to the CBD, access to genetic resources. This was the protocol. Key provision: access governed by national laws, prior informed consent, mutually agreed terms. So, these are the provision given under the CBD, access to genetic resources. And the other international frameworks are the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture. So, these are the international legal framework for access to genetic resources. What is prior informed consent, PIC? What is PIC? The consent must be obtained before accessing genetic resources. The process: involvement of national authorities and indigenous local communities, ensuring transparency in negotiation. The challenges: ensuring the participation of local communities, complex bureaucratic process. So, this is the PIC, prior informed consent. So, PIC process involve the national authorities and the indigenous local communities. Mutually agreed terms. What is mutually agreed term? That name itself suggests mutually means both the countries should be agreed mutually. So, establishing fair and equitable sharing of the benefits, and the components are the monetary benefits, royalties, milestone payment, non-monetary benefits, capacity building, technology transfer, research collaboration. Negotiation process: involvement of stakeholders, defining benefit sharing terms, long-term participation. So, this is the mutually agreed terms which has to be done between two or more than two countries for the technology transfer. The case studies: access and benefit sharing, for example, acai berry industry in Brazil. This is a utilization of genetic resources for commercial purposes, benefit of indigenous community, employment, royalty sharing. So, this is a kind of berries which are being used as the medicinal plant in Brazil, and utilization of this is being done by other part of the countries also. So, benefit to indigenous communities, employment, royalty sharing is going on. This is the one case study. Second is the Madagascar or rosy periwinkle use of plant in cancer treatment drug. It's a very beautiful flower, pink flowers. So, the use of that plant is being used for the cancer treatment drugs, and the fair sharing of the pharmaceutical profit with Madagascar. It grows in Madagascar, and that is why it is called as the Madagascar or rosy periwinkle. So, this is the key theme. This picture has been taken from the internet, how it actually works. These are the genetic resources. This could be from in situ or ex situ. These are the genetic resources. These are genetic resources give the traditional knowledge, and we are the provider, and what we do, they are the users. So, traditional knowledge goes to the provider and provider give to the users, and that is how we make the things, make the products from that genetic material. Producers are the state, have sovereign rights over natural resources, and the providers are the component national authorities, competent national authorities in these states grants users access to these resources. So, that is how we are the provider, we have a state, we have the sovereign right over the product, and CNAs in we take, providers gives the users take the product from the provider by PIC or amity. Prior informed consent or the mutually agreed terms, the things are being, biological material are transferred from provider to the users. Users are the researchers, universities, industries, could be anyone, could be the user of the genetic material, and that is how we make the products. From this product, We get the monetary benefit and the non-monetary benefit. Monetary benefit means royalty payment, joint ownership of intellectual property right, and non-property is the research and development, training and education, transfer of technology. So these are the benefits out of the product received from the provider country to the user countries. And this is non-commercial, taxonomic, conservation, commercial is biotechnology, horticulture, pharmaceutical. So there are the 5 key themes that underpin access and benefit sharing of genetic resources. There are covered in a series of fact sheets which track each theme individually. So this is how the access benefit sharing is predicted, is shown. Traditional knowledge and genetic resources. Importance of traditional knowledge, role in identifying and utilizing genetic resources, contribution to modern science like medicine, legal protection, integrating traditional knowledge in access benefit sharing framework, preventing biopiracy, biocheating. Challenges, ensuring recognition and compensation of indigenous community. There are challenges, the global challenges to is access to genetic resources like legal complexity, different national ABS laws and regulation, lack of harmonization. Enforcement issues, ensuring compliance with ABS agreement, and technology advances, impact of synthetic biology and digital sequencing of genetic resource access. So these are the global challenges in access to genetic resources. And impact assessment definition is the definition. What is an environmental impact assessment? Process of evaluating the potential environment consequences of a proposal project. And CBD's role is encouraging integrated biodiversity into national EIA process. Type of environmental assessment, type of impact assessment is the environmental impact assessment and the strategic environmental assessment. So environmental impact assessment process is the phases of EIA is screening, scoping, impact assessment, mitigation, monitoring and decision making. These are the steps involved in the EIA. Screening is the determine if an EIA is needed. Scoping, define the scope and key issues to access. Impact assessment is detailed analysis of environmental, social and economic impact. Mitigation and monitoring, developing plans to mitigate negative impact, decision making, final approval or rejection based on EIA outcome. Key consideration in biodiversity impact assessment. What are the key consideration for the biodiversity BIA? Biodiversity impact assessment is the part of the environmental impact assessment. So key consideration in biodiversity impact assessment is the biodiversity components, ecosystem, species and genetic diversity, and the impact categories are the habitat loss and fragmentation, species displacement or extinction, introduction of invasive species, and spatial focus impact on threatened or endemic species. Integrated biodiversity environmental impact assessment. What is biodiversity? Why is biodiversity important? Ecosystem services, conservation, resilience to climate change, and that is why biodiversity is important. CBD guideline, use of biodiversity indicators in assessment, engagement of biodiversity experts during the EIA process, and the challenges are lack of biodiversity data for effective management, balanced development with conservation. Strategies environmental assessment, that is SEA, what is high level policy based assessment of environmental impact. Different from EIA, how SEA is different from EIA. SEA focusing on policies, plan and protocol, and EIA focusing on individual projects. Biodiversity integration, ensuring policies and plans include biodiversity conservation goals, influencing decision making on a broader scale. So this is this SEA. SEA is different because SEA focusing on the policies while IA focusing on the individual project. Case study of the biodiversity impact assessment. So come to the case study of the BIA, that is the biodiversity impact assessment in infrastructure project. For example, Amazon rainforest infrastructure project, impact of road construction on biodiversity hotspot, mitigation measure, buffer zone, wildlife corridor, reforestation. Outcome is success and lesson learned in balancing development and conservation. So these are the outcomes. Mitigation measures overview, CBD's approach emphasizes the use of mitigation hierarchy. Promote proactive measures before harm occur. So these are the mitigation measures. Before the harm occur, we have to take the proactive measures. 4 stages: avoidance, preventing impact altogether, for example, choosing alternative sites; minimization, reducing the severity of extent of impact like modifying projects design; restoration, rehabilitating ecosystem after damage occur; and offsetting is compensating for residual impact, for example, habitat creation elsewhere. For example, coral reef restoration after coastal development. So these are the mitigation hierarchy. 4 stages: avoidance, minimization, restoration and offsetting. The best example is the coral reef restoration after coastal development. Biodiversity offsets are, what are the offsets? Compensation or unavoidable impact, and the types of offsets are the creation or restoration of habitat, long-term conservation effort. The challenges are ensuring that offset provide genuine biodiversity gain, risk of using offset as a license for habitat destruction. So these are the biodiversity offsets. The case studies are the coral reef mitigation in coastal development, Project Marine development in the Maldives, coral reef destruction, the impact was the coral reef destruction, and the mitigation strategies were artificial reef marine protected area. The outcome was the long-term monitoring of coral health, success in mitigate some of the damage. So these are the different case study as per the requirement. Challenges: mitigation of biodiversity loss, scientific and data gaps, lack of detailed biodiversity data for effective mitigation, financial and technical constraint, cost of implementing mitigation measure, access to technology and expertise, and enforcement and compliances, ensuring mitigation measures are fully implemented and monitored. So what are the conclusion and future direction? So access to genetic resource is vital for conservation and sustainable development. Proper impact assessment and mitigation strategies are critical in protecting biodiversity. The future challenges are harmonizing international access benefit sharing framework, improving biodiversity data for more effective impact assessment, and the action should be, call to action is the strengthening global and local efforts in biodiversity conservation and sustainable use of genetic resources. So thank you very much for patience listening. I hope you all enjoy my lecture. So see you in my next class. Till then, thank you very much.